we could become death camps, being worked to death, basically, which sounds very, well, it is very grim. It just opened my eyes as to the huge scale of imprisonments, executions and that sort of thing. Very few references to that in any of the history I learned, which tended to run from 1066 to about the 1700s. So it was just absolutely an eye-opener for me. It was the period leading into Glasnost and Perestroika, and I was just wondering how they were going to handle the past once there was total freedom. Is a bit of an over-exaggeration, but once there was some sort of democracy behind the Iron Curtain, how that would come about. Would there be witch hunts for the KGB, the guards, or would the old guard take over secretly, or what? How would that happen? And strange enough, in a sense, apartheid in South Africa was coming to an end as well, and there was Mandela made it fairly apparent that he wanted what do you call it, reconciliation, and you know, if people owned up, that was the end of it. But I couldn't really see that happening in such dire circumstances that had been in effect in the 60s and indeed possibly right through to the 70s in just about every country behind the Iron Curtain. She was imprisoned in the gulags in around 1964 when the thaw that had been under Khrushchev was taken over, and the hardliners put all the dissidents back in the gulags again. We'll jump to 1979. By this time, Katerina has defected to the West, and she has been established as a poet and writer about the gulags, and she's just won the Nobel Prize for Literature. We do another jump now to 1989, which is where the play is set, and she's now holed herself up. She's surrounded herself on a huge house in the middle of the Peak District, in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by barbed wire, with CCTV cameras and searchlights. She had been disseminating anti-communist things that were coming through from fellow dissidents on the underground, being sneaked out of the East, and she'd been publishing them. So she knew she was not too popular with the powers that be. And in prison camps, enmities and whatever can also spring up. I was gobsmacked. It was fantastic because at such an early stage, this was the first run without scripts, and the characters were, I mean, they weren't just 3D, they were 4D. I mean, the relationships, the way they behaved, the interactions, the looks and everything, it was like it being completely brought to life before my eyes. And I'm really, really looking forward to seeing it. I tend to come to as many shows as possible, but that's not to go, ooh, I like my play. It is to watch and feel and listen to the audience, because you don't learn anything about writing plays until it is up and running, and then you are seeing, is there anything, did that work, did that not? I'm not talking about laughs or tears necessarily. You can tell whether there's that attention, that tingle, that you can tell the difference between a dead silence and a absolutely rapt listening silence. There's a lot of humour and a lot of wit and a lot of interplay in Bird on the Wire, as well as the underlying serious aspect. And it'd be interesting again to see on different nights, different performances, which way the scales go. I don't think, and there shouldn't be, a cast iron way of making sure it goes this way every night, because that is not theatre. Theatre is, I think somebody once described it as triple action. I used to be in a group called Triple Action Theatre. First is action from the cast. Second stage is interaction between the cast and the audience. Sorry, reaction from the audience. And the third stage is interaction, that the performers pick up on how it's being received, and it guides it a different way, or can do. So every night, the action, the reaction and the interaction can be totally different. And it's not theatre if that's not happening.